During our Idle Heroes Explained videos, we have covered the Shadow faction and we've covered the Fortress faction, which means now it is time for a faction which has been once the strongest, now the weakest, arguably. It's the Abyss faction. Now, the Abyss faction is a funny faction because no one in it is immediately impactful. Instead, every hero that you'll find in the Abyss faction that performs well does so because they synergize with another hero or offer a unique benefit that will help your overall team. But on their own, very few of them actually stand as heroes that will function as your backbone hero. There's not really any carry heroes in this faction, at least not viable ones in today's meta, and it should hopefully make for an interesting discussion, and hopefully you'll learn something about how these heroes used to be good. There was a time when the Abyss faction was the strongest faction in the game outside of Light and Dark. Those days are very much long gone, and let's go take a look at the heroes. So as we've said with every single faction, let's go and originally address the main things, right? If a hero has a 4-star form, it is food, just straight up, it is bad. Whereas some 4-stars you can make up to 5-star and that's it, there are 3 that can be made to 6-star. First of all, there's Norma, a hero who was once renowned as a very good early hero with some very good tankiness and healing, but since the addition of chapter missions to the game, it's much easier to build someone like Garuda, who is far more powerful than a Norma, so Norma doesn't really have a place in the meta. She is just food. Next, we have Destroyer, a mage who, funnily enough, has a very interesting passive. When he dies, he increases the attack of all allies for 5 rounds. And this actually gets stronger when he's 9-starred as well, because if you don't know, the transition from 6-star all the way up to 9-star increases your passives, and the final passive is enhanced at 9-star. So you will be able to get a lot of attack for your team by using a Destroyer and letting him die. But that is all he does. He is just a cheesy hero that you just run to die and make everybody else more powerful. There are uses for that, especially in Seal Land, but apart from that, Destroyer doesn't have a use outside of being food. And finally, for heroes that can be taken from 6-star up to 9-star, we have Illyria. And Illyria has one of the most interesting abilities in the game. She can steal attack from the target, and this doesn't have a round limit. This used to be absolutely busted in the game because you just steal attack from enemies and make them do no damage at all. Since the release of heroes like Tix, there are more reliable ways to attack steal opponents, but as you can see, Abyss at one time had some of the most interesting heroes that you could use even though they couldn't be made to 10-star. Illyria stealing attack from bosses and making herself have a lot of attack in the process was really, really strong back in the day, and actually there are still some cheese teams out there that use Illyria to reduce mim waves in Tower of Oblivion, for example, straight to 0 attack so you can't die to them. It's difficult to pull off, but if it works, it's very satisfying. Look at Destroyer. Destroyer has an incredible final passive, which has some utility and has seen use across the history of the game. And then Norma, as I said, was one of the best early heroes to build because when she takes damage, she heals. And that's pretty cool. There it is. Yep, when taking damage has a 100% chance to restore her health. And that used to be really annoying back in the early game of Idle Heroes, especially before Garuda came along and before the chapter mission made it easy to pick up Garuda copies. So Norma was often used as a carry hero in Aspen Dungeon, and even in PvP she was really annoying to deal with because she was super tanky. Those days are long gone, but it's kind of cool to see that these heroes had a significant role in the history of the game. Moving up, let's move to the heroes that can be made to 10-star and beyond. So this is going to be our heroes that you can make to E5. And first things first is food heroes, the ones that can't be imprinted. If you know anything about this series so far, there's a difference between heroes. There's imprintable ones, which you can use Stellar Shards and 10-star heroes to take way beyond E5 to make them more powerful, and that's available once you've unlocked the Void. And then there's heroes that, if we're honest, kind of suck and can't be imprinted and are therefore food. I want to address one hero straight away who is the exception to the rule, and in fact probably the only exception in the entire game. Cruz. Cruz is ridiculously strong because of his final passive. When Cruz drops below 50% HP for the first time in battle, there is a 75% chance that he will stun all enemies for 2 rounds. This single ability makes Cruz absolutely nutty. Stick a Rui Scepter on a Cruz to improve his control precision, and you will be able to stun opponents very reliably. This is often used in PvP in endgame teams because it is just so disruptive. You hit Cruz and then boop, the opposing team is stunned for a round, which gives you a free pass to blow out your opponent. And in games where tempo really matters, getting that round 1 in, stunning the entire opposing team, making them completely miss round 1, is very satisfying. Of course, he needs to take damage for that to happen, but being unimprintable means his health is naturally going to be low. He's going to be the lowest HP hero on your team. He's going to get targeted, and hopefully this final passive will trigger. In addition, he has some really nice skills. Check out his active skill, for example. He's going to weaken 4 enemies, and it means they take 50% extra damage. That's great in PvE. Doesn't stack, unfortunately, but 50% damage dealt is actually a pretty nice bonus. In addition, he's got this ability here where his basic attack targets backline enemies, and he's able to reduce their armor. Again, really nice support. And as well, he's going to restore HP to 2 random allies by 20% of their max HP. Again, he doesn't need to be a really high level for that to be impactful because it's 20% of max HP. It's a fixed amount. And that means even though he can't be imprinted, his healing is still good. The debuffs he offers are still fantastic. And he's one of the weirdest heroes in the game because he can't be imprinted, but he is still useful. So Cruz is a very, very fun hero to use, and arguably one of the most interesting Abyss heroes there are, and is therefore the exception to the rule when it comes to heroes that cannot be imprinted. I really like him, and I think you should try him out on your team. Even just a 9-star Cruz gets this final passive to stun, and he can be really impactful in early game PvP, or even in game modes like Tower of Oblivion. If you're struggling, you need to CC opponents, a 9-star Cruz can clutch the win. And you'll see that with a lot of heroes in the Abyss faction, actually. These final passives that they put on Abyss heroes are very, very potent and interesting, and will definitely benefit your team. Moving on, we have Scary. Scary is a hero who is unimprintable, which is a shame. Scary used to be one of the most powerful PvE heroes. The marks that they are able to deal to opponents affect all Scaries. So all Scaries on your team deal more damage, and it's just incredible when you run lots of Scaries together. Tons of marks dishing out because they can be stacked. Look, 10 layers. Madness. And it's just bonkers. Unfortunately, though, it's not good anymore. If Scary was imprintable, that might be different, but Scary isn't imprintable and is therefore food. Long gone are the days of running Scary armies. It doesn't even work for clearing deeper seal lands, unfortunately, so it's a shame. Some people are trying it. It doesn't work. Just forget about Scary. The days when the insect was king is gone. Although that was very good back in the day. Scary was one of the most powerful heroes in the game. Crazy. We've got Berea. Berea's really cool. Berea gets some bonuses to his damage. He sucks though now, and he's kind of crap. You could build a Berea early and have some fun, but Berea is just non-elite, unimprintable, and kind of garbage. Same goes for Dantalion. Again, another really cool hero. Oh my goodness me. Abyss has some really powerful heroes that just don't cut it anymore. Dantalion is able to heal when he takes damage, and he's able to burn opponents, and he deals a ton of damage against warriors. So this is a hero you need to watch out for in Aspen Dungeon, because Dantalion is going to tear through Garudas if you're using a Garuda in the early game. So if you ever see a Dantalion, get worried, use a Demon Potion, and hopefully Garuda will get the job done, because Dantalion is the bane of all Garudas. We have Karim, again, another hero that used to be really strong, especially when E3 came out. The transition from 10-star to E3 really saw Karim shine, because Karim gets bonuses when people die. So in a meta where a lot of people are transitioning and no one has Unbending Will, you're going to see just Karim tear through that. Doesn't work anymore though. Karim is just garbage food right now, although he does have the ability to attack steal opponents, so that's kind of cool. We've got Gusta, terrible hero, just food. Fatmu burns, but still terrible. Yeah, food. Same with Balrog, absolute garbage, is food. However, one crazy thing about Lord Balrog, he sees use sometimes in the Void Vortex. His active skill increases the attack of a target by 60% for 2 rounds, and that's going to be the hero in slot 1. So I find this just shockingly good, because the way it works is you stick someone like Sword Flash in slot 1, and then you let Balrog do an active skill. That Sword Flash is going to get a ton of extra damage. Stick 60% extra attack on a Sword Flash. It's lovely, it's fantastic, and you pop off. Sure, it's not as much as the attack you're going to get from a Rogan, for example, but still, Lord Balrog, good hero, nice bonuses. And yeah, it might be worth trying it out in the Void Vortex, just Balrog boosting any hero for that matter that's a carry hero. Maybe it's an Eloise, I don't know that if that's going to be reliable, but someone that deals a lot of burst. It could even be an Asmodel the Dauntless, a Sword Flash, whatever you've got. Balrog will buff it up and you pop off. Is it viable in a lot of game modes? Not really, but it seems to work in the Void Vortex, so it's probably worth trying it in some Void game modes if you need some heavy burst. Other than that, though, Balrog is garbage, and he is food. And finally, I think that's it. Oh, no, we've got Queen. Yeah, Queen's another funny one. Again, weird utility from these heroes. If you take a look at Queen's abilities, she's able to reduce target's crit. So if you're losing to things like Asmodel's, for example, because they're critting you and you're dying to the crit marks, you can run a Queen on your team, reduce the opposing crit, and then it means they don't crit as much, and crit marks are likely not to go off. Wild. She's unimprintable. She's really bad, But for that reason alone, some people like to use her to offer some additional bonuses to make your team have some protection against critical hits, and it works. It genuinely works. And I just find this shocking that if you look at the Abyss faction, it's full of mostly garbage, but some of this garbage has a use. And that's the really cool thing about the Abyss faction. It's full of interesting and useful heroes. And finally, we have Margaret, a hero which, again, kind of has a use if you're feeling wild. For example, let's take a look. Where is it? When she dies, she's going to poison all enemies for 4 rounds. So if you want a little bit of extra damage over time, stick a Margaret on your team. There you go. Margaret's going to go ahead and poison opponents. Is it viable? Not really, but if you need another form of damage over time on opponents, maybe you're running a hero that we'll look at later that benefits from the amount of abilities that are on opponents, you could throw in a Margaret and ta-da, some poisons going off. So maybe that's something to consider. Other than that, though, she's total garbage. I feed every Margaret I get. She's terrible. She has the chance to stun, though, which is cute, but watch out for her damage over time. When you're facing Margarets, it can be brutal in Tower of Oblivion. She used to be one of the most frustrating heroes to go ahead and face, because 1 is bad, but when you've got 6 of them, that when they die, you're getting poisoned over and over and over again, you can't move for damage over time. It's grim. So run damage over time Purify if you're facing Margarets. That said, though, they could stun you, and then you're stunned for a ton of rounds because you haven't got Control Purify. So yeah, she's a pretty annoying hero, but for you to use, mostly garbage. And that goes through all the unimprintable heroes, and hopefully you've learned something about how to use some of these heroes. And yeah, it's worth reading through what some of them can actually do. Like Beret, for example, gets bonuses at every end of a round. It's going to get more armor break, more crit damage. So a Beret can stack up. If he lives, he's going to pop off. There's no cap on that, right? It just says get more and more and more. He's kind of like a walking, talking Antlers Cane. He just gets more crit damage and eventually pops off. The only issue is crit and crit damage have natural caps. For example, you can't get more than 100% crit because you either crit or you don't, and crit damage caps off at 150% bonus, so it stops being relevant after a few rounds. But realistically, Barrera is a solid hero if you use him right, but no, he's mostly garbage. He sucks. Don't try him out, but you can. It just won't do very well. And there you go. That's us done. Let's go take a look at the imprintable heroes, which is the entire top row. And oh my goodness me. Get ready for a list of mostly total garbage. Let's go with the fundamental ones, the ones that you actually need on your team if you want to succeed. Okay, that was great. We had a fantastic conversation. Hopefully you understand that there is no fundamental Abyss hero. There are no carry heroes. All of these synergize with your team and offer interesting bonuses. If you haven't already figured that out by the heroes we just spoke about, it's going to get even more so with the next ones. Technically, if anything, Scarlet Queen Halora is the closest to a fundamental hero for the Abyss faction, mainly because she's going to be your key hero with Abyss Seal Land. But outside of that, and I know she's a Transcendence hero, and yes, I know you need copies of Queen to go ahead and build her, so technically she's an Abyss hero, but you need to beat Seal Land 20 anyway, right? So you can't even use her in Seal Land 20. You have to get there first. So yeah, eventually Halora will come into play, and even then, Halora is mostly a support hero, and you use her as a tenant for Sword Flash. Like, Halora's abilities are nice, right? She's offering Queen's Guard, she's offering Abyssal Corruption. These are all fantastic abilities, which we will cover when we go ahead and talk about the Transcendence faction. But of course, that's it. Halora is the main key hero. So, do we need to talk about tenants for Halora? Absolutely. It's worth knowing it, so let's get it talked about. So let's go with Halora and who she needs. Well, first of all, in tenant spot 1, you've got Ignis and Queen. That's worth remembering. You've got Asmodel the Dauntless and Waldek. We've got Gloria and Morax, and we've got Jara and Delacium. Instantly, it's really fascinating. Every single hero on here are actually going to be the key Abyss heroes we talk about. Ignis, Waldek, Morax, Delacium. They are all good heroes in the Abyss faction for some particular reason, and of course, they can be used as tenants for Halora. So if you were trying to do Abyss Seal Land, it's helpful to have as many tenants as you possibly can have. So let's go talk about those 4 heroes in order of how good I think they are. First thing you need to know about all of them is Ignis, Delacium, Morax, and Waldek can all clear to varying degrees of success Seal Land 20 on their own. Ignis is by far the most difficult because she's a support hero and a priest. The rest of them do it pretty easily. So, you know what, let's start off with Ignis. Let me tell you how this works. When you want to go ahead and clear something like that with an Ignis, I have a video about it, which I'll link up there in the top corner, but generally you're trying to do damage with an Ignis with using crit attack or crit HP, some way you can make her crit, alongside a 10-star Waldek who's going to be doing a lot of damage for you, and you just want to try and keep her alive. There's a few other nitty-gritty things you need to make it work. It's really difficult, and I don't recommend it, but of course, it does work. Now, what does Ignis actually do? What makes her good? First things first you need to know about is Eternity of Dragon Soul. This is an incredible ability that makes her so good on almost every account. When Ignis dies, she's going to heal the nearest hero. So if she's in slot 1, that's going to be slot 2, and if any other position, it's going to be the one below. So if it's slot 2, it's going to be the one at slot 1. If she's in slot 3, it's going to be the hero in slot 2. So it's always the person next to her down. So what's she going to do? Well, she's going to heal them by 100% of their max HP, so it's instant full restore. She's going to give them 100 energy, so fully refreshes their energy bar, and then gives them 100% of control immunity, and that means they cannot be CC'd at all. This is an insane 3 abilities: full heal, full energy, and you can't be CC'd. It is nutty, and all you have to do is get it to 9-star to unlock that ability. So you will see time and time again people getting 9-star Ignises and putting them next to their best hero. In most cases, that's going to be an Eloise. 9-star Ignis should be a fundamental must-build hero if you plan on using Eloise. Stick her next to Eloise, give her control immunity, and you are on for a win. Because if you don't know, Eloise, when she's CC'd, cannot counterattack, and that's what makes her good. If you want to know more about Eloise, I have a video discussing shadow heroes. But overall, Ignis is fantastic, just for this ability alone. But what else makes her good? Well, it's her active skill. This is going to target enemies on the front line. Doesn't really matter who it targets. The key thing is it heals the ally with the lowest HP by 50% of Ignis's max HP. So she heals using her own HP, which is cool. So you just build a super tanky Ignis with HP or speed HP, and she's going to be nuts. And she's also going to benefit the hero who's in a similar position to what we discussed last time, next to her in the lineup, by giving them 40% damage reduction, which is huge. She just gives them, hey, look, here you go, fearless armor, boom, Plate of Courageous is called now. Have some damage reduction. Now you are harder to kill. You're welcome. And then she gives them 100 energy as well, so they get an active skill. Wild. So she energy feeds the person next to her. You will see time and time again people doing this to sword flashes, so the sword flash can get an active skill. It's kind of silly. You'll also find out that people like to use E5 Ignis Void Imprinted with a Golden Crown alongside a Halora in Sealland, because the two of them just stay alive, and Ignis is just going heal, 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 have some more of this Halora, there you go, constantly buffing the Halora and allowing Halora to just pop off with more damage reduction, more active skills. It's so strong. People are able to clear Sealland 25 using just those 2 E5s, and how do you make it work reliably? Well, funnily enough, you use 2 more Ignises at 9-star, so that the big Ignis and the Halora that you have both get given control immunity by the 2 little Ignises when they die. So you run a 9-star Ignis in slot 1, you run Halora in slot 2, then big Ignis in slot 3, so she's feeding into Halora who's in slot 2, and then in slot 4, you have the little Ignis, so when she dies, the Ignis you're running in slot 3 becomes control immune. Fantastic. Really nuts. She gains energy, she then uses an active skill that feeds into Halora, giving Halora more active skills, which means Halora does more damage. It's just a very powerful combo. If you want more information about that, I do have videos doing Abyss Sealland 25 here on the channel. You can find them, no problem. And there you go. The Ignis is just a friggin' great hero. You have to build her if you want to be good at idle heroes. She is the best Abyss hero in the game, no doubt. One of the best support heroes, if not the best support hero in the game, and is just nuttily powerful. Control immunity, energy, healing, all good things. Makes your heroes pop off. Wild. Who could complain? So let's move on to the other heroes now that we've covered those, and let's go with the most interesting. We have Delacium, a hero who honestly is really cool. He's got some crazy abilities. Let's start with the basics, right? He's just going to get speed, control immunity, crit, attack, and HP. He's going to gain this. A basic attack hitting 3 enemies and deals extra damage for every single debuff the target has. So you can choose to run Delacium as a damage dealer by debuffing the crap out of your opponents. So you give them attack reduction, you give them crit reduction, you burn them, you poison them, whatever you've got. If you can stick a red symbol on your opponent, you do it, and it allows Delacium to pop off. If you want to do a Sealland clear with a Delacium, if you want to get him to do Sealland 20, you can just run a basic E5 and just run a ton of stuff that's going to just punish up your opponents. You can stun them with a Cruce. You can debuff them with a Cruce. You can attack steal them with a Karim. You can poison them with a Margaret. Whatever you've got to throw out, because the Abyss hero, trust me, has a ton of different abilities you can throw onto heroes. Delacium's going to benefit from all of that, deal extra damage, and that allows him to pop off. In addition, he has the ability Transmissive Seed, which is so good. When a round ends, he replicates 3 random damage over times or attributes from 1 random enemy to 2 other random enemies. So what he's able to do is he's able to go, oh, hey, you're taking damage over time. How's about we just go and take your damage over time and give it to everybody else as well? This is insane when paired with someone who has a massive damage over time, such as Ithaca. Ithaca's damage over time is ridiculously strong and is based on the damage she deals. If you then let Delacium echo that to other opponents, it means everyone starts taking that damage over time. And if everybody's taking damage over time, Delacium then echoes it even more and gives it to everybody else, and it just gets higher and higher and higher, and he's just like, replicate the damage, and it just snowballs completely out of control. And then to make matters worse, Delacium turns around with his own active skill and has a 70% chance to extend the remaining rounds of all damage over times, attribute reductions, and control effects by 2 rounds. So he's like, oh, that damage over time is about to wear off? Have 2 extra rounds, thank you very much. So if you can get Delacium doing a ton of active skills and be alive at the end of rounds, he's able to replicate damage over time and make it never end. It is a stupidly strong ability and allows him to synergize with damage over time heroes so well, in fact, that he's able to make you do ridiculous damage numbers. And the even crazier thing is, the more Delaciums you run, the more Transmissive Seeds you have going off, and it just results in a colossal amount of damage for your team. So that's one cool thing about Delacium. But also, he doesn't just echo damage over times, it's attribute reductions as well. So if you were happening to run someone like Tix, for example, whose active skill can steal 25% of attack, if it's upgraded to Void 4, that becomes 30% of attack, you can then echo the attack steal as well. And that attack steal is then going to cripple opponents, bringing them to 0 attack. Delacium's ability to support heroes that debuff opponents or give them damage over time is so strong and is definitely worth considering for your team, not to mention he's also a tenant for Halora. Isn't the Abyss faction just cool? None of these heroes are like doing things that make them on their own really broken, but they're helping your entire team to perform better, and that's the job of the Abyss faction. Let's continue that trend with someone else. We have Waldek. Now, Waldek, another really cool hero. He offers a lot of bleed damage, which is really, really cool, but the big thing that makes Waldek interesting is Blood Frenzy. Blood Frenzy is an ability that gives allies just an insane amount of damage. When the hero granted with Blood Frenzy is attacked by a bleeding target, so that's someone who is bleeding, so let's say, oh, I wonder, does Waldek bleed? Yes, he does. So you bleed opponents, and then if they attack the hero who's got Blood Frenzy, they gain attack for 3 rounds and restore health. So not only is Waldek giving your team some survivability through healing, he's also increasing your attack whenever your heroes get hit. Ridiculous. And if you wanted to make that reliable, you can also go ahead and run him as a 9-star so that he gets this final passive and then he dies. And it's funny, when Waldek is dead, bleeds all enemies for 4 rounds. So, you know, I said you have to get hit by a bleeding target? Well, he's just like, I'm going to bleed everyone for 4 rounds. So I got that covered, mate. And then he's going to give the Blood Frenzy ability that we just literally spoke about to all allies. Everybody. So he bleeds all opponents, and everyone gains Blood Frenzy. I'm sorry, but this is super powerful. You can go ahead and run a 9-star Waldek again alongside someone like an Eloise, and every time she gets hit, she's going to get 12% attack for 3 rounds. If you want to get the most out of your Eloise, if you want to make her pop off, 9-star Ignis giving her control immunity, and then Waldek giving her 12% attack every time she gets hit. Come on, this is insane stuff. Waldek doesn't even need to be an E5 hero for that to happen. He again can just be 9-star. Isn't it wild that this faction has heroes who have just such good final passives? 9-star Delacium has Transmissive Seed. 9-star Ignis has Eternity of Dragon Soul. 9-star Waldek gets Gory Devotion. All these abilities are so strong. And not to mention the first guy we spoke about, Flame Invasion. 75% chance to stun all enemies for 2 rounds. All of these heroes are just martyrs, right? They just want to die or take damage so that they can do these nutty passives. The exception of the rule, of course, being Delacium, who needs to survive to the end of the round, but Oh, I love it. It's just so potent. And it just, I can't stress to you just how fun it is to use Abyss heroes on a lineup when they are this super interesting. And that's the main three heroes, Waldek, Ignis, Delacium. They offer some really interesting synergy and support if used properly, and hopefully now you've learned how to use them properly. Let's talk about the final one. It's Morax. Morax is another interesting hero that you can build up, and his purpose is completely different. Morax is the only Abyss hero that can actually deal with, funnily enough, himself. If you go ahead and take a look at the guild and go to the guild settlement, you'll know that you're churning through trying to beat these game modes, and then you reach the Ascension quest right here, where you have to face a Morax. And if you didn't know, Morax is a disgustingly strong hero if he's allowed to pop off. And in a situation where it's a 1v1, Morax will definitely pop off. And Morax's abilities result in a ton of extra damage, and he's got this stupid passive here. As he loses HP, he's going to gain all damage dealt. And it's very annoying. It gets to a bonus of 120% bonus damage dealt, and he gains 40% damage reduction, so he becomes way harder to kill, and he is just a pain to deal with. But it works both ways. You can run your own Morax, get your own benefits on him, and he can pop off. Also, it's worth noting that when he does his active skill, he gets additional hits depending on the extra ammo he has, and these additional hits, funnily enough, can all crit. Mad. He's just a really strong hero, not to mention he can burn opponents, so if that was some synergy you were looking for there, that's kind of cool. And look, there you go. Each layer of extra ammo consumed allows him to launch the same attack one more time. The same attack. He's just like, oh, I attack again. Oh, I'll attack again. I'll attack again. Bam, 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 bam. Just unloads his Gatling cannon onto opponents, dealing a ton of damage. And he's a really, really cool hero. He's a warrior, which is sad because warriors suck. But you know what? He's a fun hero to use, and I think he's underrated. I think a lot of people don't use him to his fullness. My moderator, Talking Scribe, really likes him, but he will also attest that he's not as good as other heroes. He's very average, but has a use, right? Clearing guild settlement in the Abyss faction is something he's very good at. He can do the same with the warrior faction. Like, he's just a solid hero for that reason. He's also very good at Sealand. Don't discredit him there. He's also a tenant for Helora, if that was something you needed. He's one of these heroes you build when you need him, because he's annoyingly the only guy for the job when it comes to things like that, and that's the purpose of a Morax. He's good, but not good enough, in my opinion, to build straight away, but I would try and save 9 copies to eventually build him at some point, but trust me, you are not going to rush to build this guy. You could easily be playing the game for 2 years and never build a Morax and go, yeah, I should probably build him at some point, and still never do it. He's just, yeah, he's in a bit of an awkward spot. And that's it. That's it for really good heroes. It's Waldek, Morax, Ignis, and Delacium. Clearly, Ignis, Delacium, and Waldek are way better than Morax, but Morax does have that use that we mentioned, which means I do have to talk about that. When it comes to other heroes on this list, there's Natasha, as we like to call it. She's terrible. She's this assassin that they added to the game who is trying to do too much. She has attack steal, but it's not as good as Tix's, and she deals bleed, but not as good as Ithaqua's, and it just results in a hero that's trying to be other heroes, but not reliably enough. And her ability here even is trying to reduce the armor on opponents, and you're like, no, that's Drake's job, right? There are so many heroes that she's trying to be, but she's worse versions of all of them. Now, it is efficient to have one hero doing all of those things, but she doesn't do it reliably enough because it's all based on how many layers of this ability she could stack up, which honestly is just meh. Right? She's an inconsistent hero. I am not going to go through the effort of reading her skills and abilities to you. I'm just going to say don't build her. She's pretty bad. You could potentially build her as a tenant for some heroes. Some heroes do use her as a tenant, but she's an assassin, and therefore the bonuses she offers aren't as high as other heroes. So if you have a choice, for example, between Siahu and Natasha, build Siahu. We'll talk about him when we get to the Forest faction. Natasha could be used as a tenant, but honestly, there's no reason to build her, and I happily use her as food. And other assassins that kind of suck, we've got Nakia. Nakia is a hero I really want to work, right? Nakia has some really nice abilities. For example, her active skill or basic attack bleeds all bleeding enemies for additional damage. It's nice, and if she crits, she's going to bleed them again. She churns out tons of damage, and if you see, it's 100% attack here, 230, but for some reason, they were like, yeah, this isn't good enough. When she gets imprinted, we're going to make it 250%. Oh, yeah, that's nice big numbers, and let's make this 575%. Like, her attack stacks big. These numbers become real big. The bleed lasts for 15 rounds. She also can slow enemies with this passive right here. Her basic attack bleeds all backliners and then slows them down by 40 speed for 3 rounds. That's massive as well in PvP. Or at least it used to be before Transcendence Heroes were a thing, because slowing down opponents was key, and a lot of people actually ran a Nakia on their PvP lineups because she herself is fast. She's coming in at 12-18 speed, which was tied with carry, and back in a meta where 12-18 speed was the key speed stat, having a Nakia come out and slow down opponents was just really, really potent, but now it isn't, and she isn't as good as she used to be. Her damage numbers are colossal, but unfortunately she is really squishy, and if you think Nakia's squishy, like, I mean, dude, Ithaca is just as squishy, and Ithaca can heal and deals way more damage. So if you want a damage dealer who's a glass cannon, Nakia is not the hero, it's Ithaca. I'm sorry, you shouldn't be doing this. Also, an assassin that deals a ton of damage, I mean, it's nice that Nakia hits the entire backline, but you know who hits everybody? Oh, Sword Flash. So if you're using an assassin team, you should probably be going for a Sword Flash, and Nakia just doesn't make the cut for that reason. There are some niche uses for her, but honestly, if you were gonna try and clear Seal Land 20 in the Abyss faction with a Nakia, you're doing something wrong, because you can do it with Waldek, you can do it with Morax, you can do it with Delacium. Delacium, you can literally slap up any artifact on him that you've got that deals decent damage. People do it without stones. Delacium is just stupid because of all the damage bonuses he gets from all the debuffs, and then you can just go with Golden Crowns on Morax or on Waldek and you'll be just fine. Like, it's silly. As for the Ignis clear, yeah, you can find out how that works. I just don't recommend it. And yeah, moving on, we've got Cthugha. I mean, here you go. Here's a hero that you should use as food. That's it. I mean, a lot of people are stands for Cthugha. They're like, oh yeah, he's a really cool early hero. Look, he's as good as an early hero as Garuda. And I'm sorry, but you get a ton of Garuda copies from the chapter missions. And if you were going to build anyone that isn't Garuda, it should be Eloise or maybe Penny. Because Penny is reliable at doing Fortress Seal Land when you finally get enough imprints, and she can deal with the Aspen Dungeon. So that's nice, she's an investment. But then obviously Penny drops off way harder than Eloise does, so always Eloise. The only other thing you could maybe go for is an Ithaca, but that's because she's a tenant for Eloise, so you'll build Ithaca to eventually build Eloise. Go assassins first, that kind of thing. That's fun. I like Ithaca. She's very cool. But, you know, Cthugha used to be in this bucket. People used to say, hey, yeah, go build Cthugha as a first hero. He's a really good first E5. Yeah, that was back in the olden days. Cthugha is not a good first E5 anymore. He's okay, but literally, if you're forced to build someone who's on the level of Cthugha, it's probably Garuda. I mean, if you can somehow manage to pull out a Cthugha, and it's Cthugha or Garuda, I mean, I would go with Cthugha because he's a ranger, right? That's kind of cool. But if it's literally between Garuda and Cthugha, then fine, build Cthugha. He's cool, he's got some burn abilities, he's quite disruptive, has a lot of healing, actually, and he's way better at the Aspen Dungeon. So yeah, you could have fun with a Cthugha. He's a very cool hero, and I'll allow you in your free time to explore his abilities. But generally, for those of you that are new to the game, want some advice, it's don't build Cthugha, he trash, he food. So yeah, bad. Move on. King Barton. Amazing hero back in 2018. That's when he was released. He has this really cool counter attack where whenever he takes damage, he just goes bonk, bonk, bonk and increases his own attack as well. And it's so cool. The counter attack hits everyone. So he's like Eloise, but better. But unfortunately, he isn't, right? He's just unreliable. He's very cool, though. If he had the healing levels that Eloise had, we would see King Barton destroying the meta. But because he has no inbuilt healing, it just results in a pretty bad hero. He's also able to stun people. Like, if you want a buffer hero, DH Games, King Barton is your top candidate, because he will open doors if you stick some healing on this bad boy. But unfortunately, he doesn't have Eloise-like healing. I mean, Eloise's healing is nuts. King Barton can't compare to that. He has none at all. If he did, he'd be crazy. He doesn't. He's bad. It's that simple. King Barton is cool, though, and he is imprintable, which is nice, but unfortunately, gaining attack every time he takes damage isn't enough to push him ahead, and if I wanted that ability on a hero, I can literally just give it to them with Waldek. Right, Blood Frenzy literally says, gain attack every time you take damage. I mean, yeah, if you like that about King Barton, just build a 9-star Waldek and give it to your entire freaking team. So yeah, King Barton's a great hero, but he's way old and not good. Right, I've said he's great, as in he's cool and he's fun, but you shouldn't build him. He's trash. yeah, maybe I shouldn't say they're great and then trash in the same sentence. Hopefully you know what I mean. Like, he's just not a hero worth building. And then, yeah, we're back to Cruz. That's it. We've covered the entire Abyss faction. Hopefully you learned something. I love the Abyss faction. It's full of some gnarly heroes that have some really interesting abilities. And maybe you'll have to rewatch this video to go back through them, but seriously, it's worth exploring some of the things these heroes can do. If there's ever going to be some broken strategies, it will definitely involve an Abyss hero. Like, I mean, two of the most broken strategies in the game involve Delacium and Ignis, right? These heroes are just super good, and obviously there's other combos and things you can do here. And even though the faction itself is terrible, because there are no, like, fundamentally good heroes, the options and versatility that you get from the Abyss faction is fascinatingly interesting. And the fact that with Halora and the Ignis combo and the 2 little 9-star Ignises, you have one of the easiest Seal Land clears for all the way up to Seal Land 25, it is definitely worth mentioning the Abyss faction when it comes to viable places to focus your attention. So yeah, hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you've walked away from this video with a little bit of insight into the Abyss faction. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments section down below. Who is your favorite Abyss hero? I'd be curious to know the answer to that one. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to catch more content like this. Until next time though, guys, have a great week and happy idling.